And here we go. So on tonight's episode of PotWater Presents, we are at the Wonder Woman and Weed Wednesday. Dun, dun, dun. And tonight I have Alex Mitchell, which I am so excited to let her talk all about all the wonderful things that she does. She has completely transformed my brain and my life. And she's worked with my daughter as well. And so I'm so excited for her to tell you about what she does. So I'm going to let her take it from here.
Great. Thanks, Amanda. I am Alex Mitchell, and I do coaching. I do integrative life coaching, which you're like, what is that? What does that mean? It's all made up. All the coaching stuff. It's like we bring to it what we bring to it. And so for me, it means bringing basically a basis in neuroscience to my coaching. And so I very much follow the idea and the notion that's backed up scientifically that we can change our own brains. And so when we know that we can change our own brains, that lets us do lots of really exciting things. And so while Amanda was saying, I've transformed her life, I'm going to disagree with that. Amanda has transformed her life because I don't do the work. You as the client do the work. I'm just there to facilitate and witness and guide. And so you did a lot of tremendous work, Amanda. I want to say that to you. And so when you say my life is transformed, it's really you've transformed your life. And it's an amazing thing to get to witness. And I love working with clients. And I think I have really found my area that I really excel in. I had a long career in the tech world, a career in the nonprofit world with, big NGOs. And then the pandemic hit and I pivoted and I really started learning a lot about cannabis. And then through that, my life changed a lot. And then I realized, hey, that wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. And I found this amazing training that I went to this year, 2023. And it's led me to here. And I just love it, working with people and helping them change their brains. And so I always start off my first session with people to say, what do you want to change today? And that really is what we're doing. It's anything that you want to work on, I will work on. And so when we think about our brains and the way that we work, I view like almost everything as a habit, right? The things that we do. And so your brain, it says, oh, I'm going to go down this habit road and this is what I do. Oh, this is what I do when this happens. I just do this thing. This is what I do. And so the brain starts to take the shape of the things that we do over and over. And so if you say to yourself, over and over, I'm not good enough, then your brain starts to take that shape. And so how can we change that? Because the things that we say to ourselves become ingrained in our brains. And that's what I work with people on. So when you are going down that habit road of, I'm going to keep using the I'm not good enough example because I think a lot of women have it. I'm not good enough. You're going down that habit road. When I work with you, I start to teach you how to put roadblocks up so that your brain starts to have a chance to make a choice on what that response actually is. So maybe that feeling of I'm not good enough comes up when you have to go talk to your kid's teacher, right? Even though it shouldn't be a scary thing, sometimes it is. It's like, oh my God, I got to go do this. And now I'm freaking out and I'm not good enough and da-da-da and da-da-da. And you start telling yourself that story again. And so when you work with me, you start to learn how to put a roadblock up and start a new neural pathway. We all have the ability to change our reaction, right? And so that roadblock gives us a chance to make a different decision. And then as we keep making that better decision of, oh, I am good enough. Oh, I'm perfect just how I am, perfectly imperfect. As we start doing that, then your brain starts to get that as the habit road, right? So instead of gets to a point, instead of going off to I'm not good enough, it goes, you know what? No, I'm perfectly imperfect. I'm going to go this path. And I just love that. I talk about it as rewiring your brain, and it really is available to everyone. You can do really rapid mindset changes. You can do really rapid changes. It is a shortcut to change the thoughts that you have over and over. It can even be used to do things, and I'll use a personal example now. So I had a memory of giving birth to my child. And it was a C-section that was an emergency. And going into that, I was in the operating room and I had to make a decision in that moment when things are chaotic of, am I going to hold my child immediately, or am I going to let the cord stop pulsing? Right. And so that's like a horrible decision to have to make as a mom who had a birth plan and didn't intend to have a C-section. And so every time, even though I'd worked on that and worked on that and worked on that whole birth experience in therapy for many years, and a wonderful therapist, and I'd made tremendous progress, when I would have that memory of that operating room, there was always that shadow over it of, I was put in an impossible position, and I had regret and I had anger and all these things. And that's wasn't really serving me anymore, right? There's nothing I can do to change it. It's happened. It's over. I made the decision that I made. And I want to be able to look back at that memory and not feel those same feelings. I want to remember having that feeling of holding my son for the first time and how amazing that was. And so through this work, I've been able to do that and rewire and change that memory. And what we don't realize as people just kind of out in the world is our brain, every time it pulls a memory up, it actually changes it a tiny bit. And so the memories that you think you have are not actually what happened. They are, but they're not, right? Because we make a little adjustment. And if our brain makes a little adjustment to a memory, then it would stand that you could adjust it on your own. And so that's what I did. Working with one of my teachers, because she was doing this with us, and I've now done it with clients I went, no, I don't, when I think of that memory, when I have that memory come up, I don't want to feel those feelings that I don't want. I want to feel that happiness and, just overwhelming joy of holding my child for the first time. And so that's what we did. That's when I call up that memory now, that is the feeling I have, not the old feelings. And so we were able to do that just using techniques that I use in coaching to help people make those changes. So I'm going to stop there and see if you have a question, because I could see your face changing, because I'd never told you that story before.
No, I'm so like, that's just mind. That's phenomenal. And what an amazing gift to be able to change that. Like, now I already know what I want to do with you next time we meet. So, but to be able to do that for so many people who've had so many traumatic events that could change it to a different narrative, and just like, yes, this needs to get out into the world. And I'm just so grateful that you have taken this route to be able to share that, because you are the perfect facilitator for this.
Oh, thank you.
Like,
Thank you.
your mannerisms, your voice, your persona are just so perfect for this work. And I am so honored to be a part of it. I really am. So, we've worked together several times, and I look forward to working with you again. And I've even had you work with my daughter for sleep. We've worked on finding my Absalom.
And yes, well, let's tell people who that is. So they're like, what? Finding what?
So everyone basically has like an inner voice. It's kind of like your Jiminy Cricket, so to speak. And I forget the words that you used. There's a term that you use.
Wise advocate.
That's what it was. The wise advocate. I was thinking wise owl, but I knew that wasn't right. And so we took a journey together, and I met my wise advocate, and it was Absalom from the Alice in Wonderland, which makes a complete sense. And I've gone to visit him several times, and I've also got to find the workspace for my business. We did that together too. Yeah. And that's completely changed how I approach my business now. Yeah. And, it's, you can, like you said, you can use it in all different areas of your life. And so if there's anyone out there, one of our meetings, one of the girls talked about biting their fingernails. And I'm like, why didn't I think of that? That's one of my biggest issues that I've dealt with my whole life. So again, I have a list for when we meet. But
Yes.
this isn't about me. This is about you. And I want you to share more of how you can help people transform from biting your nails all the way to meeting their own wise advocate.
Yeah. So wise advocate, I'm going to actually start there because you brought it up. I say wise advocate, but as I take you through that sort of work, and it is, so when I talk about hypnosis, I often talk about trance. And so you'll hear me say trance, but that is an experience where I take you into a state of really deep relaxation. And it actually allows the unconscious mind to come forward. And that is who our wise advocate is, right? It's a part of you. You've named yours, you have an image associated with yours, but there are other people who maybe don't see anything. Maybe they don't imagine anything. Maybe it's just another part of them that talks to them. And so those are some of the things that I do. People can gain clarity through this sort of technique where, you have an issue that you are seeking clarity on. And then through hypnosis and doing this kind of trance work, we can actually take that wall down between, if this is your conscious mind and this is your unconscious mind. During trance, we actually open that door so that your unconscious mind can communicate with you more. Because, I actually can't suddenly off the top of my head remember the number, but it's some absurdly small percentage of our brains are actually being used at any time. And there's this enormous part that's working away and doing things and thinking that we're not conscious of. And so when we use trance or hypnosis to quiet down, the conscious mind, we can actually open that doorway. And so when we do that, it's things like wise advocate, or it's things like, I want to do this. The thing you're talking about is I did a group trance at a business networking meeting. And what we did was very similar to what you did with wise advocate, but instead it was going and talking to the spirit of your business. And again, that's part of your unconscious mind, right? But it's a way to let you almost take a step back and be able to communicate with it and observe and see what's happening and see what answers your own brain is bringing forward for you. So I do work like that, which some people may think, oh my God, that sounds really scary. What do you mean a hypnotic trance? And I want to assure people that hypnosis, despite what you might see on the movies or maybe entertainment things you've seen, I do not make you quack like a duck. There is none of that. So with me, you are 100% aware of what is happening. Mm-hmm. You are 100% in control. You always have the choice to follow guidance that I suggest or not. And then, as I've said to you, Amanda, there are times when people are in trance, and we've done this together, where I'm watching my client and I can actually see from a person's face when something is happening in their brain. And so when I notice something like that, as I'm in a session, I might say to a client, what are you noticing? And what I generally tell people is that's really just to bring your attention to it. I actually don't need to know. And the really, to me, really cool thing about hypnosis and the way that I work like this is I actually don't have to have the details, because as I said, you do the work. I'm there to help guide. And so if you said, I have a big, I've worked on this in therapy and I have a trauma and I feel like I've resolved it, but it's still bugging me and I just want to let it go. I don't even need to know what it is you want to let go, as long as you know. Because when you know, you're going to light up the neural pathways that it's associated with. And I'm then going to guide you to start a new neural pathway with regards to that. And so I don't actually have to know the details. Always people can share with me if they want, but I want to reassure people you can work in lots of different ways with me. And so trance is one way. Other ways that I work with people, like you mentioned, nail biting. So I actually have 2 clients that I've been working with recently that do something called skin picking, which is really similar. And in fact, one of them had nail biting as an issue. And skin picking is when people worry the skin around their fingers and they do whatever. And, oh, I see it. Yep. And so working with those 2 people, One was a man and one was a woman. The man, we resolved his skin picking issue in one session. So that is the power of hypnosis and the ability to change our own brain, that neuroplasticity, that we can change our own brain. And so we worked through, and I thought it would take much longer. One session, he comes back the next week and he's like, it's done. Like, there is no urge. I did the techniques a few times because I taught him some things to do while he, if he noticed himself starting to do it, that how we would interrupt it. Remember, I talked about the roadblock. And so he only had to do that a few times and it was resolved, and it has not come back. And I've been working with him 2 months now. So we're on to working on other things now, but it hasn't come back. And then for my other client who had that issue, it took 2 sessions for her to really make a big leap. And then she had a little bit of a backslide. We worked again, and now she's solid. And so for her, it's like 2.5 sessions, which of something that she's had her whole life, like 40 plus years. And so I work with people in that. And you may be thinking, people watching this may be thinking, well, it sounds like you really just work with people who have issues. And that, yes, that's one way that I work with people. But I also work with people who just want change. Maybe it's not something that they've had, some habit that they've had for 40 years. Maybe they just are like, I'm entering my middle essence. I'm getting older. I want to start exercising, and I find myself not able to start exercising. Well, I'll work with people to build habits, right? Because the habit is not doing it. So we're going to change that. How do you want to do instead? And so I've had people that I worked with there too, where they're like, well, I want to exercise every day. And it's like, well, what's the next smallest step that you could take? And so for many of them, it's like, I could just go outside and walk. And it's like, yeah. And so we just work with that to start that neural pathway, that the routine is when I come home from work, I go in, I say hello to everybody, I get my dog, and I go walk for 30 minutes, and then I go home again, right? And it just becomes part of the routine. And so I can work with people in that way. And then I also work with people in their businesses, right? Mainly solo entrepreneurs, smaller businesses, helping them with planning, because all of this really does tie in together, right? We're all people, and it's really working with the people. And it, to me, in the work that I do, you can be a mom, you can be a dad, you can be a business owner, you can be a single person, you can be a senior, you can be a child. I really will work with anyone. And I actually love working with kids. Thank you for letting your child be the first one to work with me, but I've since had a couple of others, including my own child. Right. So I'm feeling really comfortable with an entire age range. And it really is, for me, bring anything, right? If I think I'm not the right person, I will tell you. But, the first, what I tell people is, come in. If you aren't sure, come in. I offer a free 1-hour call. And if you want change in that first call, I will work with you for change in that first call, so you can really experience what it's like. If you've never had hypnosis and you want to come experience it, book a call with me. And that's how confident I feel about how I can help people start to make changes that they want, that I start that from the very first call. If you want change, I'm there for it, and let's start. There's no reason to wait. And if you decide it's not for you, no hard feelings for me, that's okay. If you decide it's not right now, that's okay too. Or if you're ready to get started, boom, we've already started, and we'll just go on to the next one. So, and I work virtually. So anywhere in the world, doesn't matter where you are. If you have Zoom, if you have internet access, you can work with me. I don't know if I'll ever go to seeing people in person. I'm in a really large metropolitan area. It's certainly possible I could, but I don't know. So right now it's like Zoom is my window into everything, just as it was, all those years when I was working virtually before. I'm so accustomed to this. So what else? Did any questions come up in that part for you?
Well, just thank you for working with my daughter. Because that's something, and I've talked to several parents about it since, so don't be surprised after this if you do get other parents reaching out, because we've had such a great change with it. And of course, there's always going to be something you're going to want to change as a human being. I don't know of anyone, even the most confident people, that are like, oh, I'm 100% perfect and I don't need anything. Right. And like you said, it could be something from biting your nails to, like, you've worked with me on sleep and trying to be on time. And those are all things, and like rewiring my brain so it works properly. And so there's no limit to what you can do. And that's what fascinates me about it. It can be, some people say, well, it might be too small. It's like, no, there's nothing too small. If it's something that you want to work on, you'll work on it with them. Like, if there's a way to help, like, better my handwriting, let's figure that one out.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I have horrible handwriting. I would love to have my mom has beautiful calligraphy handwriting. And I've always admired that. It's like, if we can figure out a way to work together to get my handwriting great, let's try that next, You
never know what will happen. So last week, I mean, this one literally just happened. Last week, one of my colleagues from my training, we have a private Facebook group, right, where we communicate with each other, and we often ask for peer coaching, right, because we're all trained the same way and we know what we're going to get. And we know, hey, I can ask somebody for 1 or 2 sessions and we're all fine giving that because we know what we all do. And so I saw a post from someone that I'd never met. My training was over 300 people. And I was never randomly assigned to her during a breakout room. So I'd never actually met her. But she posted, I've got this facial tic happening where I hold my mouth a certain way. And she said, my husband kept telling me I was doing it and I didn't believe him. And then I saw myself on video and she's like, I've got to get this resolved. Please, somebody work with me. And I'm like, sure, why not? So I was the first person to say, I'll do it. And she and I had one session, and we actually resolved it in 17 minutes. And it's been, it's been a week. She messaged me, she waited a week and she messaged me and she said, it's gone. After that 17 minutes, it's never happened again. And so it was really rewiring her brain. Like she had gotten this habit and she didn't realize she was doing it. And it was initially because she was responding to Invisalign inside her mouth. And so her brain got wired in this, here's how I act when I'm checking on my Invisalign. And she hadn't realized she was doing it. And it had just and then when she came out of the Invisalign, it became really apparent. Apparently it was like changing or something. So you never know what people want to work on. I mean, that was like, okay, sure, I'll try this, because worst case, it doesn't work, right? But it worked. Yeah. I felt really confident actually going in because honestly, because of the skin picking people that I'd already worked with. Because wow, what a long habit to have 40 plus years, right? Having this habit. And I'm like, well, this one is much shorter, right? It's barely been happening. Surely we can, get this one to change. And we did, and we timed it. I mean, we didn't time it deliberately, but like we did it. And I looked down at the clock and she's like, we're done. And I'm like, it's been 17 minutes. And she's like, I think we're done. And then we chatted for the rest of our hour, and then checked in on it a couple of times. Like I like to loop it, as people know, as you know, I like to check back. And then a week later, she messaged me and said, okay, it's not that 17 minutes and it's done. So you never know what's going to work because when you really want that change, speaking to the person as the client, if you come in really wanting that change, that's like priming you to be able to make that change rapidly. But if you come in and you're like not really sure you want the change, maybe you don't want it, right? It's like you have to look at, are you a motivated person who wants to make these changes? My 2 skin picking people were like, I want this gone. I am done. I don't want this anymore, right? It was really clear. Same with her. I've got this facial thing happening. I don't want it. And I think when you're really motivated like that to make the change, that's when it really, your brain, right, is already in that motivated state. And it's like, oh yeah, You were changing this. Yes, this is what I want. I want to change it. I wasn't sure how to do it. Now I know. Now the neural pathway is starting. Okay, I'm going to do it. And I just find it fascinating, right? Like,
Yeah.
how does this work? How does this
Yeah.
work? You know,
But it works. And
but
that's
it
the
works.
best part, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and like you said, it's not everybody, I think, having watched the movies, like you said, has a preconceived notion when you say hypnosis. And they all, oh, the clucking of the chicken, and if you say this one word, I'm gonna start cluck. And you're right, it's nothing like that. So for anyone watching, having gone through it myself, and having had my 9-year-old daughter work with Alex, and I sat side by side, and she felt comfortable and safe, and did the to help with sleep and self-confidence and her gymnastics, which she leaps and bounds above where she was then. She doesn't have, that was one of her things, was the self-confidence and being able to saying, I can't do this. She doesn't say that anymore. There is nothing she doesn't try to do anymore, which I'm like, okay, this might get a little scary. But she has the confidence, and so she doesn't have that holding her back. And the tricks that she's doing now are so far advanced of where she was, because she doesn't have it in her head that she can't do it anymore. So thank you, Alex, for working with her on that.
You're welcome. And I think something that I would offer now, just to your watchers, I'm actually just going to demo it, and this one, I'm going to grab a little hair clip here and pull back, is when you're super activated and you're upset and your nervous system is going haywire, there's this thing called bilateral stimulation that you can do, and it is super simple. And it will calm your nervous system down, and it works. And it's been scientifically shown, right? So when you're in that state, which I'm not now, right? Because I'm talking to you, but let's say that I was, what I start doing is I start passing this object from side to side. And the key thing here is that I'm actually crossing the midline of my body with my hand. So it's actually coming across. I'm not doing it here. I'm actually crossing it like this. And you can actually do it with nothing in your hand too. Sometimes it's easier to do it with stuff in your hand. But this is bilateral stimulation. And when you do this, when you're really upset, it will actually downregulate your nervous system really quickly and let you get back in control of what's happening, right? So I like to use the example. So I'm going to use two examples here. I like to use the example of somebody cuts you off in traffic and you're all angry and you want to downregulate. You can do that. The cool thing is the brain actually doesn't know the difference between imagining doing it and actually doing it. So you could even just imagine it. So if you're driving your car, it helps if you've done it before, you know what it feels like then, but your brain actually can do things. And that's why things like, when we think about, we'll use an Olympic, maybe downhill skier, right? As an example, right? So for them, when they're at that elite level, they actually bring in people to do things like this with them, mental rehearsal, right? Go hypnotizing them, having them see in their mind's eye, doing that race, everything going well, scoring the way, the points that they want to score. And every time they do that mental rehearsal, it's as if they had done the thing. They had done the race. And so they don't walk into a race having done it, 10 times during a practice. No, they've done it hundreds of times in their minds. And that takes them up that next notch. And that is something that is available to all of us. We just don't realize that, hey, I could actually be doing that kind of thing too, mental rehearsal. And if I've got that, that presentation I have to do at work or whatever, and I'm nervous about it, using mental rehearsal can help you calm yourself down. So I teach things like that in my sessions, right? Maybe somebody comes to me because they've got to do a big presentation and they're really worried about it and scared and nervous. I'll work with them and we'll get past that and we'll change how they want to feel. How do you want to feel instead? I want to feel confident and grounded. Great. What does it feel like when you're confident and grounded? And really working people through that. And when I'm doing that, that's generally conversational hypnosis, right? So I can do hypnosis even just in a conversation with people. And of course, it's always done with their consent and their knowledge. coming into a coaching session with me, when you first learn about what I do, I take some time to explain what I'm doing and get agreement. And, this is what's going to happen. And you always have, the ability to say no. But I'll use conversational hypnosis with people too, of just guiding them through how they change their own brain. Yeah. I just love it. And it works. I love it.
Because I know that's something that we talked about when we worked together is, the thoughts in your brain and how it affects you. And I've caught myself now where it's been really stressful. Life has just really been kicking me lately. And instead of going, oh, I'm so frustrated or I'm so down, it's like, no, I'm a boss. I'm a badass. I'm a goddess. I can handle this. I'm okay. Because I hear you in my brain, and it's actually transitioned from your voice in my brain to my own voice now.
Yeah.
And so that you have given me the tools to use to change the narrative in my own brain, and it's working. And so, for anyone watching this, have that call with Alex. You will not regret it. Promise. I promise. Because it's been amazing. And to see the transformation that you've gone through since we first started working to where you are now, I'm so excited for you. And to see, I can't wait for like 6 months from now and a year from now for us to have another interview and talk about where we, are then and where you are and what you're doing. And just to bring it back into the cannabis aspect, we actually had a lifted session together, and I found it even helped me to break that barrier down a lot faster and a lot more concisely. And it was a very powerful session for me. So thank you for giving me this.
It's if when you talk to someone who is like a traditional hypnosis person, they're going to say, oh no, because I had that conversation with someone. And then I thought, you know what? No, you trust yourself because you know what people can do with cannabis. And so there are people like you and others that I will work with in an elevated way if they would like to. It's really up to them. And again, it's because we have a relationship with the plant and we use it mindfully and consciously, right? That we're doing this conscious consumption for a very specific reason. And so I'm actually now offering, and this would be great for any of your people watching if you want to attend, I'm now offering on the second Thursday evening of each month a plant medicine and trance event. It's called a Higher State Circle. And I'm co-leading that with Michelle Crawford of Wrap Your State of Mind and Kanikuri's coaching. And she is amazing from an education standpoint, but then also amazing in the way that she can open sacred space and hold space and open with ceremony and all of that. And so we have, an opening with her. There's an optional cannabis consumption if you would like. And then we go into guided trance. And we did our first one on 4/20 and it was a great success. And so we've decided that for the rest of 2023, on the second Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, we're going to offer these. And so they're fairly short. They're anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes. We tell people to allocate 45 just in case we run a little long, because when I'm guiding trance, I'm also in trance. And so the way that it works is I go first. And so sometimes I'm in the groove too, and we're all in the groove and we're all in the energy and we just kind of want to hang out there a little while. So sometimes we might go a little longer depending on sort of what's the energy in the room. And I'm really looking forward to where this goes as I continue to get more training. So we're offering it now and I feel really great about it, but it's just going to keep up leveling because I'm going to finish my training and be a certified hypnotist by July. And then I'm doing another training, which I'm super excited about leading psychedelic trance. with no psychedelics involved. And
Oh,
so I'm super excited to see where this experience goes as I continue to develop my skills at guiding trances and doing that. So yeah, if anyone wants to attend, I'm sure Amanda will link it down below. There is a link where you register, and then that will get you, you can decide to just say, hey, I want to come to every single one of them, and you can go ahead and get the registration for the whole rest of the year, and then show up if you can. Second Thursday, and it's free. We are asking if people can to make a donation to Americans for Safe Access, which is an advocacy group that works on patients' rights for cannabis, for medical cannabis. And as a medical cannabis patient, that's definitely something close to my heart. And so if people can donate to Americans for Safe Access, great. Again, if you can't, just come on in and give it a try, you know, and see what you think. It's a great way to get exposed to the work that Michelle does a little bit, and then get exposed to, you know, what it's like to be in a guided group trance. And these are really designed to be relaxation for people. So it's a good way to kind of check out. We aimed for Thursday night because we knew we wouldn't get people on Friday, but Thursday's kind of leading into the weekend. So you can set yourself up for a really nice Friday. And then, you know, have your weekend. So the first one's actually, I don't know when you're publishing this, but to tell you, the first one's actually Thursday. So it's like today is Wednesday when we're recording this. It's going to be tomorrow night. And so second Thursday of every month. And you can find out about it on my website. Actually, there's not a page up yet, but there will be by the time you publish this. There'll be a little page up about it that leads to the registration, so you can learn a little bit more about what we're doing. The theme does change every month. So for 420, the trance portion was a walk through the cannabis fields with the smells and the sounds and the colors and all these things. And, you know, working with meeting the spirit of cannabis, you know, out in the middle of the field. This month in May, it's going to be something different. I'm not going to give it totally away, but they're never the same. Okay. And so there's a theme every month. And so I'm sure in the fall, we will get to harvesting cannabis in our guided imagery at some point. And I know that for 420 next year, I would just love to redo that same one because it was so much fun to lead and experience from my side, and then watching everyone's faces as they experienced it and did their own walks, and then hearing the feedback after of, you know, so many different images of what the spirit of cannabis looked like for people. It's just, it was really, really amazing to do. So that's out there, and it's welcoming of everyone. You know, you just register, come in. It's not a discussion group. It really is. We come in, we're all quiet. You need to be somewhere quiet because you're going to do like a relaxation. And I like to recommend that people just lie down and really relax and just hear us and just go through. So yeah, hope to see you there, Amanda.
I hope to make it too.
Come. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I like, because it's later in the day. So actually, you said it's at 5:30 your time, right? So it would be Pacific. It'd be 8:30 in Michigan. Yeah. So that's a perfect time for me because then I could go right to bed.
Yes. Yes.
So I will be joining you from my bed.
Yes. And you don't have to be on camera. I appreciate when I have people on camera. Mm-hmm. And honestly, when I'm coaching, I like to see people on camera. But, you know, for this guided trance, just get yourself comfy. That camera doesn't have to be on. It's really listening to our voices. And if you want to consume cannabis, you know, doing that, you know, during the part where Michelle is taking you through that. Yeah, I just find it fascinating. And I because I'm guiding and needing to, there is a part of me that has to keep up with what's going on. I do not consume, but Michelle does as part of the work that we're doing. So maybe I'll get there. I think I just need to be a little bit more comfortable guiding it, and then I will feel like I could do it elevated a little bit. And by elevated, I just want to be clear with people. We're not talking about being super, super high. It's really just bringing in the medicine in a really conscious consumption way that, you know, because at least for me, I will speak to my experience. I find cannabis to be very heart opening and very mind opening for me. When I use it very mindfully and I'm doing it with a purpose and an intention. And so during this guided trance, during the first part of it, when Michelle is opening space for us, she does talk about, setting your intention for that session, whatever that intention is, right? Mostly, I think for this one, it will be people wanting to just relax and let go of stress and just be and just, be floating in that state of, I think it's like a state of bliss, honestly.
Mhm.
You just let your mind go and let that unconscious do what it wants to do. It's amazing.
Now,
Yeah.
if for anyone that does want to consume,
Yeah.
if they were to use edibles, how far in advance would you recommend them taking them? Because it does sometimes take a while for them to kick in.
Right. So if you want to consume, and edibles are the way that you most often consume, you will know approximately how long it takes for it to hit for you. So you would have to do it from your experience, right? So for me, in my experience, for an edible for me, it generally takes about 90 minutes for it to kick in for me. And that's how my endocannabinoid system handles it. And so for other people, maybe it's shorter, maybe it's longer. You have to know from your own. And then, of course, we know because of the work that we do in cannabis that the most rapid onset is going to be inhalation, whether that's actually smoking it or using a dry herb vaporizer. Those will hit you within like 5 minutes, right? You'll feel the effect. A tincture is going to be a little slower. So a tincture is a cannabis oil that you put in your mouth and you hold under your tongue. And when you hold those under your tongue for a minute or two, it's not just put it in your mouth and swallow, but it's actually holding it. And when you hold it in your mouth, it's able to absorb into your bloodstream faster because of all of the blood vessels that are in the mouth. And so it can do that, and that will be a faster onset as well. That'll be like 30 minutes instead of 2 hours for an edible. So they're processed in different ways. When you eat an edible, it has to be processed by the liver and transformed into various molecules, which then create that sensation of elevation, depending on what kind of edible you've eaten.
Right.
CBD, it might be total relaxation. If it's THC, maybe you're going to feel a little euphoria. If it's a nice balance of the two, you're somewhere in the middle. Like I really love like a 2-to-1 ratio personally, 2 CBDs to 1 THCs.
Mm-hmm.
And so really people will have to think about how they do it. And if they're brand new to cannabis, if you've never consumed it before, I would suggest that this not be the first time you consume it, that you do that away from trance, so that you know what its effects are going to be. And then we're happy to welcome you into the space. And again, though, at our event, consumption is optional. So if you don't want to consume anything, that's okay too. And like I said, I'm leading up to psychedelic trance with no drugs involved, no anything involved. I shouldn't have used the D word, but nothing involved, because I actually don't think of it as that. It's a plant. We'll do that without anything, right? So yeah, I find one of the most fascinating things to me about the brain is, this is from my teacher. I've not tried this yet, but from my teacher, she said, there are people who come to her who don't have an alcohol problem, but they want to just be able to have one drink and feel like they've had 3, because they enjoy that feeling that they have at 3, but they don't want to drink that much. And so with hypnosis, you can actually set the brain up to do that. It's similar to setting up the going to sleep button, right?
Right.
To say, when I have this drink, I'm going to feel this effect. This is how I want to feel. And so when you know what the trigger is, it's going to remind your brain to say, this is how I want to feel. Then it's done. And so people can do that for that. I'm assuming you could do it for cannabis. I might want to test this one on somebody who's willing. But what does it feel like? Like Amanda's like, raise my hand, I want to test it. But like changing how you feel. And so that's actually part of that is called revivification. And so like when I talk about psychedelic trance, what I know is, because I've been practiced on already with this, is people who have experienced a psychedelic experience before, have had one before, it's easier for their brains to go, oh yeah, I remember what this feels like. Oh yeah, we're going there, right? It's reviving that memory. And so you can do that with the effect of cannabis, and you can do that with the effect of alcohol if you want to cut down on your drinking, or if you want to stop entirely, right? All of those things are possible with you working with your brain. Yeah.
I almost, now that you explain it that way, there's a part of me that wonders if that's why when people use the terms indica and sativa, which drive me insane now that I've learned about cannabis, and that indica and sativa are just about the shapes of the plant and not the effects. But everybody's like, no, when I take it, it does this. And I think that's because they've trained their brain. And so it's like, you've just hit the nail on the head and given the best way to explain to people, like, it's because you're triggering your brain to indica, couch, and sativa as the energy. So that's how I've tried explaining it to people. But yeah, you've done it way more succinctly than I could.
That's a great point. I actually had not gone there with it before, but you're right. It is that training that they may have, which for me, because I came to cannabis late in my life, like really like 10 years ago, right? And not medical, not really understanding the medical use of it until 2020, right? Starting to realize, oh, wait, this is actually, this is better for me than that stuff I was doing, for issues that I was having. So I think you've hit the nail on the head, because I don't have a lot of that training, right? So I never have that. I don't look at those labels. And I've had bud tenders, of course, ask me, do you want this or this? And I go, I don't look at it like that. I want you to give me these 5 packages and let me look at the labels, because I'm looking at the terpenes, right?
Right.
Like, yeah. And I'm understanding, right, from a different perspective. But you're right. It could be that they're setting themselves up to, oh yeah, I'm having an indica, so I'm going to be stuck on the sofa and I'm going to be really sleepy and it's going to make me really heavy and tired, when maybe it doesn't, because what we know is that the terpenes actually drive your experience. And so you want to pay attention to what terpenes you like. And like for me, I know that I like those citrusy terpenes, right? So I'm looking for limonene, right? That's like my number one. And so when I walk into a dispensary and I know nothing about any of the strains that they're, displaying in front of me, I say, I want the one that's citrus. And they're able to, and I know, right? Because your nose knows what works for you with cannabis. And so I know that if it is a citrusy one, like a mimosa or an orange blossom or a lemon kush, like, I like those. My body likes those. That's how I like to feel. That's what works for me. So I would encourage people to, also, think about what the effects are and pick your cannabis strain or chemobar mindfully when you're thinking about doing a situation like our cannabis in trance. Maybe you have one that really does lead you to that real relaxation, openness, floaty feeling. And wouldn't it be great to have trance amplify that and go through that, versus something that maybe makes you go all the way to sleep or makes you really bouncy and giggly? That may not be how you want to feel. Maybe it is how you want to feel during the trance, but be mindful of that, of what cannabis am I going to consume, whether that's THC or CBD or a mix. What am I going to consume before I do this trance?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, like my husband's extremely sensitive to THC. And so whenever he would take it, he's like, oh, I'm going to get paranoid. I'm going to get this. And it's like, well, of course you're going to, because you're telling yourself that you're going to have that happen. So it's like going on a roller coaster and you have the people who are like, oh, I'm so scared. It's going to be awful. Fuck. And then you've got the people who are like, hey. And so I tell people, like, your mindset does affect how it, and so I think it relates, whether it's indica, sativa, whether, whatever. So it's a good something for people to start tracking if you don't have a dosage tracker already, to sit down and keep a little journal and say, okay, if I go into it with this mindset and I'm taking the same thing, do I have different effects because I always tell people too, it depends on if you've had a good day or bad day. Are your endorphin levels high? Are your cortisol levels high? That's going to affect your dosing. So you could take the same dose every day of the same thing and have different results. But I love how that you can train your brain to get the desired effect of what you want. And
as well, right? Because we know of course, there are going to be physical things that affect it, right? The terpenes, the percentage of THC and all those things, but your brain can also play a part in that, right? So they can work hand in hand and go hand in hand. You mentioned dosing, and I just want to drop a tip out there for people. If you aren't familiar with how to dose cannabis and how to find your right dose, if you go to healer.com, he actually gives away a dosage guide and kind of how to find your dose. So that's on healer.com, HEALER.com. It's run by a doctor, Dustin Sulak. And so he gives away on his website some information about how to find your correct dose. So if somebody watching isn't familiar with that, that's a great free resource to use if you just want to get it and read it and experiment, because he does go into set and setting, right? In addition, and he actually provides guidance on how to check in on yourself as you're determining your dose. So that's a great way if you perhaps don't have a cannabis coach in your budget right now, right? Because a cannabis coach will do that work with you. You can do some self-guided work through healer.com, and I so trust everything. He's always up on the latest research on cannabis. Just a wonderful, doctor in the cannabis field who he does so much for the whole cannabis medical piece of things. I just really like to recommend, and he has excellent products, right? He has excellent mail order CBD products that you can purchase from him too. And then I know locally you have people in Michigan too.
Yes. Yeah, we have
so you're going to shop local. Amanda can tell you where to go.
Come see me.
I forgot about that when I'm talking about Healer, but I know you guys have in Michigan stuff too, and I'm looking forward to later in the year, visiting. I'm going to come visit Michigan and see Amanda, and so I'm looking forward to experiencing what it has, what you guys have, so that I can have more fun with it. Kind of see what you have. I'm from Washington State, and so we have, lots of access here because we've been medical and recreational for a really long time. And we have great growers and producers here. But I do like traveling inside the US to states where it's legal and getting to try something else, right? Because right now I can't pick up the phone and order THC flower from California to be delivered to me. It doesn't work that way. And so it's nice when I go visit that I can purchase something locally and try what the local growers have. Yeah.
Exciting. I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. I'm so excited for that.
It is. All right. So what else can I answer? Any other questions for me?
So my next question is just for fun. What's your favorite way to consume?
Oh, I go back and forth on that one. I do. Right now, I will be honest, right now it is smoking a joint. If you'd asked me 6 months ago, it would have been dry or vape. And if you'd asked me a year ago, it might have been an edible. So it's really interesting how it changes, because what we do know from research is when you burn cannabis, it creates a certain type of molecule, which is different than when you inhale it from a dry or vaporizer, which is different than the way an edible acts. And so maybe it's just what my endocannabinoid system is responding to right now is it wants the kind that when it's burned, what that creates. And I just honor that. And then I'll get to a point where it's like, okay, I'm done with that. It is listening to your own body and checking in on what's the proper, what proper is the wrong word, but what's feeling good to me in my body and what's working for me. And then of course because I treat cannabis as a supplement, because it is for me, because I use it for many different things. I take a cocoa butter pill that melts in my mouth that has lots of cannabinoids in it from all the different kinds, because there are different kinds, right? As you know. So it really varies. So, but I do love me a good joint.
So right now mine is my dryer vaporizer and my suppositories. Oh my God, suppositories.
Yeah. And
I just got my third shipment in today. Like I'm literally ordering them just because I'm terrified of running out and I haven't learned how to make them yet.
So you do need to learn how to make them because they are super easy to make. And it's so funny because I have this concentrate sitting here on my desk that I need to take downstairs and actually use. I was using it to show someone what a concentrate looked like. But, suppositories are an amazing way to deliver because I talk a lot about it from a medical standpoint, right? Because my use is very definitely medical and I'm a medical card holder. It is a great way to deliver a high number of cannabinoids if you need it. And so when you think about someone who's exploring using cannabis for cancer, that's often the method delivery, because you can take into your body, and your body uses a lot of cannabinoids that way that don't, because of the way it's being absorbed into the body, it doesn't necessarily make you high. And so when you're looking at it from a medical standpoint, it really is a great delivery method. And then from a women's health perspective, it's also incredible to use vaginally for painful periods, for dryness, just general well-being. There are lots of stories out there about how it's used, and I just And then I have to put this plug, even though your audience probably knows this. It's kind of like hypnosis. This is funny. I'm now seeing this analogy. So cannabis works on so many different things because it actually works on a system that runs throughout the entire body and affects the entire body, which is the endocannabinoid system. Just like hypnosis works on lots of different things, because it is actually working on the brain. And it can do so many different things in the brain. It can allow you to do things to your own brain while you're under hypnosis. I didn't even see that analogy before. They're very similar in the way that they they work on lots of different things. And it sounds like it's like too good to be true. Like that's the attitude. Sometimes people are like, oh, there's no way. But we know, right, from all these anecdotal stories and all the research we see on cannabis, that it does work for a lot of different things, just like hypnosis does. From I'm biting my nails to I'm freaking out because I have to go speak to I don't like how that memory affects me still and I want to let it go. It can affect so many things too. Mm-hmm. So love that. Love that. I'm going to remember that one. That's a good one.
Yay. Well, I've really enjoyed talking with you, Alex, and I know you're a busy lady. So I'm going to end this call, and I have no doubt that we will be doing this again in the future. So I'm so excited and so grateful for you for all of the work that you do. You truly are gifted, and thank you for sharing your gifts with not only me, but with everyone. So if you haven't booked a call with Alex, you must do so, please, because I just can't say enough good things of the work that she's done with me, with my daughter, with friends, coworkers, with everybody that I know. You've had all the glowing reviews, and it's been life-changing and the best way possible. So thank you for taking the initiative to put yourself out there, to do this amazing work that you do, and for being a lifelong learner, and for being so passionate about it, because the joy that you bring to it, I've seen different therapists over the years, and I've never immediately felt so comfortable and so empowered as I have working with you.
Right. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Amanda. That means a lot. I truly love this work, and I just can't wait to keep putting it out there in the world. So you want to have a conversation with me, book it, coaching conversation, go to my website. It's there. Book a call with me. Amanda can put the link in the description, alexmitchellcoaching.com. I would love to talk to people. And I just want to reassure people, it is not a heavy sales call. It is literally, let's have a conversation. You want some change, let's work on it. And at the end, it's like, would you like to move forward? Would you like to hear more? And it's totally okay for the answer to be no. Because it's, people have to find what works for them. And if it doesn't speak to you, that's okay. There is something out there that will speak to you. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you. This was a lot of fun today. I look forward to, getting to promote it out there on social media and letting people know, because it's great to talk to you as always.
Well, thank you, dear. I appreciate that. So I want to thank Alex Mitchell Coaching for coming on this episode of PotWater Presents for our Wonder Woman in Weed Wednesday. Thank you all for watching. Pinkies up.